Hey everyone, I'm not sure if you can see me or not. If you can, please give me a quick shout out. Apologies for the quick delay here. That's technology for you. If you're there, please let me know and we will go on from there. Can you hear me? Can you see me? That sort of thing. So far, so good, I think. I think we're pretty good here. Right. It says that I'm streaming. So that's probably a good sign. And yes, I can see in here from Janice Stubblefield, TAV 229. Thank you so much for letting me know. That's greatly appreciated. So let me kick this off because, of course, I wasted 5 minutes just on the technological side of things already. For those of you who don't know, my name is Damon DeMarco, and I'm here at the Right Stuff Pro. I'm a professional writer of 20 plus years, and I have a bunch of things to tell you, housekeeping things, before I begin taking your questions on the business of writing. So here's the first part that I'm going to say. I have a course that a lot of writers use called the Break Your Story course. It is for novelists and playwrights, and it's very, very useful for people who want to learn about the structure of stories. And from now until the end of the holidays, you can take 20% off on that by using the coupon code BREAK20. So here is my link for that right here. I'm going to give it to you so that you can have it. And it's right there. Bang. Okay. When you get there, if you're interested in that at all, there's a video on there that'll tell you more about it. I don't want to take up too much more of your time in case you're not interested, but use this code here and that'll take 20% off. What else? Starting January 29th, I'm co-facilitating a 10-week course called Writing in Perilous Times with award-winning writer Bridget Shade Knopfsinger, and here is a link to that course. It is fantastic for anybody who is disgruntled and upset about anything that is going on in the world today, in your community, in the world, in the country. It's entirely up to you. So check that out if you can. Somebody asked about the YouTube membership levels that we have here at the Right Stuff Pro. Great question. They're new, so why should you know anything about them? You shouldn't. But I'm going to put out a video about that very quickly, probably maybe just after the holidays. It will tell you what those levels are about. However, you can always just check that stuff out here. Join our mailing list, please, and that is at this link right here. It's called the Right Stuff Pro. You can also find out about our developmental editing services there. And then somebody asked about my band, Hermes Baby, and I was so captivated by that. Thank you so much. It's very kind of you for asking. And yeah, we just started posting stuff on YouTube, and it's right there on that link right there. How about that? I bet you didn't think you were going to get all that stuff right in the beginning, did you? Well, there it is. Okay, so why did I have this session set up? I try to do one of these sessions once a month. It's an hour where I just talk with you and try and answer any questions that you have, and try and get to know you, frankly, because it's really cool being here on YouTube and building up, a community of people who enjoys the same things that I do, which is writing, frankly. The craft of writing, the impact of writing. And a lot of you probably know at this point that I'm a huge fan of vintage manual typewriters, so I talk a lot about that as well. But lately, a lot of people have been asking me about the business of writing, and that's a huge topic because, yes, the creative side of writing obviously is very important. However, the business side of writing, actually getting things sold, is something that a lot of people don't know about, and I've been doing it for 20 plus years, and I figured I'll just open up the floor to anything that you have, any questions that you have. I'll answer them as best I can. Everything that you hear is going to come only from my point of view, from my experience. I'll try. I always try to be honest with you, but I mean, I'll try to be doubly honest if I'm not sure about something. So that's all I have to say. Let fly. What questions do you have, guys? And if you don't have any questions, I'll tap dance for a while, but I'd rather not. We got Janice. Janice, do you have any question here? Janice Stubblefield, Tave 229. I don't like dead air, so listen, I'm just going to tell you a story. How did I get my first agent? It happened like this. I was an actor. That's how I came to New York City. I had always written on the side, but I went to school to be an actor. My master's degree, my MFA, was from an acting, or is from an acting conservatory. Pretty good one, actually. And when I got here, I started pursuing film, TV, and theater work, and I started booking it pretty well. I worked as an actor for about 15 years. Let me put this story on pause for a second because Golden Lion 8 has a question. Do you have more than one typewriter? If so, which typewriters do you use for what? Well, it's not a business question, but what the hell? Let's answer it. Yes, I have about 26 typewriters currently. Do I use them all? No, nobody can do that. Um, on my desk right now, I have my Olympia SM3, which is from 1958. I have my Smith Corona Silent Super, which is from about 1957. I have my Hermes 3000, which is from 1963. I have my Olivetti Lettera 32, approximately 1965. Very difficult to tell the date because that one was made in Spain. I have my Smith Corona Skywriter, which is a dead-on 1950. And those are the ones that I am currently, Golden Lion, swapping in and out of rotation because I like to have a lot of them available to me at any given moment. And whichever one feels like it's the best one for me in that moment is the one that I use. Also, if I happen to be traveling, it's very, very good to grab the Olivetti Lettera 32 or the Smith Corona Skywriter because those are two unbelievably good ultra portable typewriters. Neither one weighs more than 8 pounds, give or take. And for those of you who have watched my videos, you know that I'm a big proponent of scattering typewriters all over the place. At relatives' houses that I visit frequently, I have typewriters stashed everywhere. That way I don't have to pull them through airport security or take them on trains. You know, I've got Smith Coronas scattered all over the place. I'm a big Smith Corona fan, particularly of the Silent, Sterling, and Silent Super series. Does that answer your question? Okay. It's always so weird to be speaking to people and not actually hear your voices. I hope that's not weird for you. That's a little weird for me. So I came to New York and to be an actor and worked consistently as an actor for about 15 years before my writing career took off. How did my writing career take off? The manager that I had at the time, he was an acting manager, was writing a TV pilot with me, and he had a client, an acting client, who was a former Miss Universe from some country in Africa. I could tell you the country in Africa, but that might identify who this person is, and she might not want to be identified, so I'm going to tread that very, very lightly. I hope you don't mind. Anyway, she was a United Nations ambassador, very, very bright, very talented young woman. Thank you, Golden Lion. Okay, very good. Yes, I'm very, very happy that answers your question. And she got a little grant, this former Miss Universe, to do her memoirs from the United Nations. They gave her a little bit of seed money. And so my manager at the time, this is what many managers do, he was looking for a way to make commission on both sides of the trade, right? So he was taking a little bit of money, his commission, from the Miss Universe for brokering the deal. And he said, well, I've got a writer on staff, and he meant me. And he put us together, and I started working on her memoir. We got about 3 chapters into it, and really 3 chapters is kind of all you need to sell nonfiction. Okay, you're going to put together a proposal for nonfiction, and that's what you show to an agent. And then the agent, the literary agent, is going to take that around and they're going to shop it to publishers who are in that particular market. So here I was, I'd always kind of wanted to be a writer, and I found myself suddenly in the room with a very, very good literary agent who is still my nonfiction literary agent to this day. And we were talking about bringing this Miss Universe book out to market, to see if we could get a bid on it. Well, uh, cut to the chase, that project never got off the ground, and that's I later found not very unusual in the publishing community, and I won't go into all the reasons for that. Um, Sidebar conversation for another time. However, this particular literary agent and I got along really well. She liked me, she liked my work. I found her to be very sensible, very practical, total straight shooter. And that's kicked off a collaboration. We've been working together for nonfiction on several projects for, dear God, how long has it been? Over 20 years, put it that way. Um, and that's kind of how it works sometimes, If somebody likes your work, then you follow that breadcrumb, as some people like to say. And so I did. And that's how I got my first agent. She actually said to me, hey, what else do you have? I know this Miss Universe thing did not go through, but I really like your work. Is there anything else that you have that, I could bring to the market? And it just so happened that I had spent the 18 months after the World Trade Center was attacked, because I live here in New York City, right? And when the towers were attacked, I was out of work at the time as an actor, and I saw the destruction that was being caused. And I went out in the street one day and I talked to a local police officer, and he was working at the precinct right down the street from me, but he told me that he had been there. And I said, "Oh, you got to tell me about that." And I had one of those little digital, not even digital, it was a magnetic tape recorder, right? Which we used to have back in the day. And I said, "Just tell me what happened if you don't mind my interviewing you." Well, he did. And then he said at the end of it, "Well, if you think I've got a great story to tell you, you should talk to this friend of mine who's a fireman." He was down there. And then the fireman said, "Well, you should talk to a friend of mine who's a paramedic, and he'll tell you the things he saw." And so one thing after another, for 18 months, I interviewed over 100 people, volunteers, survivors of the towers, the families of the bereaved, politicians. And I compiled all these interviews in a Studs Terkel-like book. And if you don't know who Studs Terkel is, look him up. Did some great work. He just went around interviewing people, trying to get their stories as oral histories, which were published to great and I believe necessary acclaim, because they preserve the independent voices of people who were parts of different experiences for history. They also make great entertaining reading. They're just great. I'd also gone to college, and I'd been exposed to the Works Progress Administration slave narratives. Now, if you don't know what those are, during the Great Depression, when we were trying to get the country back on its feet, um, the Works Progress Administration hired a bunch of journalists to go out and record people's experiences about various aspects of their lives. And one of the things that they did was to interview former slaves. These were African Americans who at that point were old. Okay, because slavery ended, what, 1864, I think it was, and here it was 70 years later. So, some of them were in their 80s and 90s, and they were talking. The question was basically, what was slavery like for you, and what do you remember about it? So that history could be preserved. Well, long story short, I did this for the trade towers, what happened at the World Trade Center specifically. And that book became okay. So the agent said, "What else have you got?" And I said, "Well, I got this drawer full of interviews," and I put them all together for her, and I gave her this massive collection, utterly unpublishable collection of interviews, utterly unpublishable. I mean, it's just too big, right? And she was like, "Well, I actually think this is great, and this is fantastic. I've never seen this before. Nobody's done this before." Long story short, she was the agent for that project. That was my first published book. It's gone through, I don't even know how many editions at this point. We've done reeditions and reeditions and a leather-bound edition from Easton Press, a really lovely edition. And then there was another one that just happened a couple of years ago. The publisher asked me to do some follow-up interviews for the 20th anniversary of 9/11. All of that can be found. It's called, the current title is Tower Stories, an oral history of 9/11. And so from there, I didn't plan this. Sometimes I think the best things in life can't be planned. Suddenly I started getting calls from publishers, sometimes through that agent, sometimes people would contact me directly, sometimes it just came from all over. Would you do a collaboration with this person? Would you do a collaboration with that person? And it's, my question at that point was, how much? And what is this person? Later on, it became, well, what kind of story is this? It became a little less mercenary and a little bit more craft oriented. But of course, in those first couple books, what you want to do is, at least in my case, I just wanted to get as much experience as possible. And for anybody watching this right now who wants a career in the writing trade, I urge you to get as much experience as you possibly can. Write anything. Obviously, write your own stuff. I also write fiction. But a lot of times people will come to me. Right now, I ghostwrite for a lot of great people, business moguls, thought leaders, politicians, celebrities, celebrity athletes. Anything that you write is going to get you steeped in the art of crafting a narrative, crafting sentences, finding the voice of the person that you're representing, either when you're collaborating with somebody or if you're writing your own things. That narrator has its own voice, whoever it is. It could be a character doing first person narration, or it could be your third person omniscient or limited narrator. All of that is fair game, but you have to know how to handle it, right? Just like if you buy a Maserati and you want to take it out at 100, drive it on the highway at 100 of the Autobahn, 180, 200 miles an hour, you better know what you're doing. Not that I've done that, but I think the analogy holds. I'm talking a lot. I hope this is of benefit to you. That's why I hold these sessions, but I'm really more interested in your questions. Does anybody out there have any questions about the business of writing? A lot of people ask me, what's the deal with self-publishing? What is this thing called hybrid publishing? Is traditional publishing worth it anymore? These are all great questions to ask, and I have experience with them. So if that's on your mind, please let fly with that. And in the meantime, I'm going to take a sip of this water. How about that? So let me tell you what I've learned about traditional versus hybrid versus self-publishing. Just so you know, you probably find this all over the internet. It's widely known. Traditional publishing is you have an agent and they shop your, let's use fiction, manuscript or nonfiction proposal. Golden Lion again. Sorry, let me put this on hold. I like talking to Golden Lion. Golden Lion 8. Golden Lion 8 says, do you have writer's block? Probably yes, smiley face. I'm not going to ask how you deal with these, but rather, did you ever try to find out the reason for writer's block? This is a great question, Golden Lion. Do I have writer's block? Yeah, it usually lasts approximately 5 seconds. Why does it only last 5 seconds, and what is the reason? It's basically the same answer. I believe, at least this is how it works with me, that if you're blocked, it means you're trying too hard to be good. Does that make sense? You're sitting there in front of your typewriter, you're sitting there with your pen, you're sitting there in front of your computer, and the whole blocked thing is like, well, I don't know what to say. I don't know what to say. Anything. Say anything. Just get something down. One of the things I tell I don't have students, but I have other writers that I work with in a mentoring capacity. One of the things that I tell them is if you feel blocked, write about being blocked right there in the middle of the narrative. If you're on, like I was this morning, chapter 20 of a book that I'm doing, yeah, there comes a moment when you're like, what am I saying here? If it gets really bad, if it lasts for a little while, say, I literally have, type this into your screen or onto the page. I have no idea what to say here. What I'm trying to say is that they rode up to the city wall and it was 4 stories tall and it was up on a grass rampart. And I'm not sure if I'm saying that right, but now you've got something down that you can go back and edit. It's really as simple as that. Remember that writing is an iterative process. What you see in the final book, just like on film, it's, the final cut. That's you know how long it took to get that? That one shot, they might have shot it 5, 10 times. And then they take all the footage and then they give it to a person called an editor, and they're the one stitching everything together and use that to your advantage as a writer. Always use that to your advantage. If you don't like it, come back to it tomorrow, fix it. When you're finished with a book, here's what I do. Let it sit like a pie on the windowsill in the old days when we used to make pies on the windowsill. Let it cool and then come back and you edit it as if you've never seen it before. And what I frequently do is I go, who wrote this shit? Oh my God, this is awful. Oh wait, that was me. Okay, no problem. Put a new hat on and fix it. All of a sudden the comments are lighting up here. Maybe that struck a nerve. Ooh, yes, that makes a lot of sense and it helps, says Golden Lion 8. Great, fantastic. That's really all there is to it. Don't try to be perfect. Try to be anything but, frankly. And that's where whatever is going to come out of you is going to come out of you. And then Golden Lion 8, being perfectionist is a curse. Yeah, man. I don't know who you are. You male, female, whatever's in between these days. Thank you for coming. Yes, perfectionism sucks. The only thing that is perfect is what is imperfect. That's my personal belief about writing and about life. If you're looking for the perfect, you're never going to find it. You can have standards. That's a totally different thing. Okay, having standards is absolutely important in writing and life. But you kind of, here's what I've learned. You kind of got to know when to say, hey, I'm very fortunate to have this. A lot of people don't have what I have. In relationships, in life, in economics, right? Your personal finances and all that. And in your craft. I mean, that's what we're here to talk about, right? It's just, if you're working on, like I'm working usually on 2 books at a time these days, plus a bunch of freelance projects that I can knock off in a series of days. Um, Personally, I count myself very fortunate, and it's very important. There's a cat, right? You can't see it. There's a black cat from my next door neighbor, and hey, how are you? Yeah, we're on YouTube. Do you want to come in? Do you want to come in? I'm not going to let you in because it's friggin' cold outside. Uh, anyway, I hope that helps. Golden Lion 8. D. Picado, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, says, I improved my daily word count by adopting a typewriter. Yeah, me too. Do I start writing with it? And if you do, I do. When you put your work on a computer? Great question. Um, the short answer to this, D. Picado, is that I start every day, not every working day, every day on a vintage manual typewriter. Every single day. The first thing that I do is a prompt of some sort, a writing prompt, usually what they call a shadow prompt, right? You can get these all over the internet. There are different places that specialize in them, and they go deep into what I consider to be the soul. And they like the one that I here. Do you want me to pull up the one that I got this morning? Let me pull it up for you, and then I'll circle back around and answer your question about when do I put the work on a computer. The question that I dealt with this morning it was a career prompt. Some of them have to do with excellent. I got your name correct, and you're following from Italy. Nice to have you on board. Thank you for stopping by. The prompt that I was dealing with this morning was a career prompt because it kind of gets to the heart of your feelings about your career. They have relationship prompts, they have economics and finances prompts, and all these things. Have you ever felt, this is the prompt that I responded to this morning at some ungodly hour, envious, have you ever felt envious or resentful for someone else's career success? And what does this reveal about your own aspirations and feelings of inadequacy? Hmm. Uh, I spend, I don't know, it could be 20 minutes to 40 minutes usually doing these prompts every morning. Why do I do them? And why do I do them on a vintage manual typewriter? The first thing, why do I do them? Because they get me to know me. It's like free therapy. Frankly, it's like me I gotta confess. I gotta fess up, you know. These are the things about myself that are very, very important, and I have to get to know them about myself. And if I can get to know them about myself, I move past them, I find, in my personal life and in my development as a human being, and therefore, consequentially, in my writing. Now, once I've done my prompt work on a day that I'm actually attacking a project, right? Not attacking a project, but I'm working on it. I go after that 20 to 40 minutes. I start blasting away on the typewriter. Why do I do it on a typewriter? Because it's free. It's freeing, I should say. I don't have to compose great sentences. I just have to get it out. I got to get it onto a page. I'm following the outline that I'm a big outliner. Okay, and that's what the Break Your Story is course. You'll find that up in the comments. I urge all writers to get really good at outlining because the first structural work of anything has to be done. You got to build the house in your mind before you can build it out here. Otherwise, you're just hammering boards together and hoping that you're going to get your dream house. No, it's never worked for me. I tried to do it that way for decades, and not a good idea. So I do everything on the typewriter first. When do I move it to the computer? I'm hemming and hawing D. Picado because the truth is there's no algorithm for it. When I feel it, and it could be every day, it could be every 3 or 4 days, then I digitize it. And I did a video for that on my channel about how I digitize things. It's very simple. It doesn't cost you a penny. I use a free app I take a PDF of my typewritten pages with my phone. Okay. I upload that to Google Drive. I open the PDF as a Google Doc, and immediately the OCR, optical character recognition technology, takes all of my typewritten stuff and it digitizes it so that I can then work with the text. There's a few steps that I go through, but to homogenize the text, right? Make sure it's all the same font, make sure it's all the same size. But it's so easy to do, and now I'm off and running. Now I move into the second phase of the writing, which is the editing phase. Okay, so there's the composition phase. I'm not sure, maybe on this side of your screen. The composition phase for me, for everybody, is always first, and then there's the editing phase, which could be iterative. I just typed a, what do you call it, a blog post here on the YouTube channel. Somebody wrote to me and said, are you serious? You do like 20 different drafts of each of your books? Yeah, of course. I'm not that good of a writer. You know what I mean? Like, I'm never going to get it on the first try. Nobody does, by the way. Or the second try or the third try. Usually by the third try, I figured out, okay, here's what needs work and here's what doesn't need work. By the time you get to the latter drafts, you're only just adjusting commas, but by that point you know that it's time to go out. You know, it's time to give it to your editor by that point. It's time to, or if it's a spec project, it's time to give it to the agent. In the case of fiction, you got to give them the entire manuscript, right? So, you know, you learn these things about yourself in the same way that if you do anything iteratively over and over and over again, you're going to develop your own process. Does that answer your question, D. Picotto? I hope so. It is, in fact, a great question and one which is very near and dear to my heart. Who else has anything? By all means, jump in. We seem to be talking a lot about the craft of writing today. My intention was to talk about the business of writing, but if you have any craft questions, I can certainly entertain those here. And again, I'm just telling you what I do. I'm just telling you what I know, and you know, I hope it works for you. And if you have any questions, go to the rightstuff.pro, the Right Stuff Pro. Use the contact form. That's the best way to get in touch with me. Ask me questions. You know, I'll get back to you. I love having people that I talk to. If I'm delayed, here's something. Like I just got back to somebody. They bought my course back in May. And Irving, if you're out there, I'm so sorry. But, you know, schedules being what they are these days, I sometimes don't check that particular email box because I know it's on autopilot. People buy the course. If they really have an issue, they find me in other ways. So I apologize. But anyway, you can find me at the Right Stuff Pro. D. Picotto says it does. Thank you. In other words, I hope I added some value there for you. That's fantastic. What else? You should know, in case it crossed your mind, fiction and nonfiction are completely different markets. You sell a nonfiction book very differently than you sell a fiction book. Let me take it apart for you. In fiction, you have to have your whole manuscript done. The whole book has to be there. Okay? Not so in nonfiction. In nonfiction, what they want, they, being the literary agent that you're working with, and the acquiring editor at the publishing house, and we can talk more about, I don't know why, but I'm not on the screen here anymore. What's going on? I don't know. Here we are again. We're back. It's a document. It's a business plan. It tells the publishers who the intended audience is. Not receiving enough video to maintain some as such. Videos will. I'm getting these notes on my screen here that says that YouTube is blowing up. YouTube is not receiving enough video to maintain smooth streaming. What the hell does that mean? I have no idea what that means, and so I'm going to ignore it. Um, it sounds like everybody's still out there, so I think we're in pretty good shape here. Nonfiction, you need to write a proposal. That proposal's got to include like a business plan. Who are the people that I'm going to reach out to? Who is the main intended audience for this book? What do they look like? What is their age demographic? What is their socioeconomic bracket? What are their interests? And that's who you're pitching to directly. Platform is huge in publishing. It always has been, but now it's more huge than ever. You absolutely have to have platform. And what does that mean? It means that you have to know who your book is going to and who's going to buy it. And you have to be prepared to sell it to them. And this is something that a lot of people don't understand in publishing. People want to be writers. But believe me, I get it. I always wanted to be a writer, and here I am doing it. But it's show business, right? Show is the craft of writing, the craft of telling a good story. Business is selling that book to readers so that money comes into the publishers and flows to you in the case of traditional publishing. There are other cases, specifically what we now call hybrid publishing and self-publishing, where that's inverted. Okay, anybody can self-publish these days. You know that, and you probably know all the pitfalls of self-publishing. When you work with a traditional publisher, like I have books that are published with Penguin Random House, right? Great people to work with, very talented. They take over everything, and they do a great job. The royalty rate for Penguin Random House is lower, although the advance was great. You're not going to get an advance with, self-publishing, but 70% approximately of every book that you sell, either an ebook or a physical format, you're going to get that money. So there are cost benefits from both sides of publishing. And a hybrid, by the way, drives right up the middle. Hybrid publishing is you're basically self-publishing, but you're hiring an intermediary who is going to do what traditional publishing doesn't do a lot of anymore, a thorough edit, right? They're going to help you do the marketing work, because if you're self-publishing, you got to do all that yourself. But the hybrid publisher will go out and they will take a lot of that burden on for themselves. They'll find a cover designer who's not somebody that you find on Fiverr, and they'll help you post the book on Amazon.com and BarnesandNoble.com and all these platforms. And you can monetize that very well. It's not going to be as good a royalty rate as you get with self-publishing. You're not going to get any advance probably, like you would with traditional publishing. But that's the current ecosystem, guys. That plus ebooks. Anybody can make a living right now, I think, writing. Let me take that back. It's more possible than ever to make a living as a writer now, I think, than it ever was, because we have this thing called the internet. And if you write something interesting or useful to other people, then you can sell your writing. You can solve somebody else's problem. That is kind of the rubric for any business arrangement. Solve somebody else's problem. If you're writing a business book, for instance, and I do a lot of collaborations and ghostwriting for business books, who is your reader? Identify them. Well, they have a problem with this. They don't know how to do internet marketing. Okay. You've just taken on a job. As a writer, you're trying to figure out how to reach the person who needs your expertise. And so you're going to solve their problem for them. You're going to come up with a step-by-step uh, technique, the way I came up with a step-by-step technique for Break Your Story, that is going to solve a person's problem. This is what you follow. This will solve your problem. I've already done this work for you, is what that kind of book is doing, right? It's a how-to, essentially. And so that's a great business case for any business, right? I mean, think about it. What problem does the iPhone solve, or smartphones in general? Well, years ago, somebody probably sat down and said, what would it be like if instead of having these phones on the wall, which is what I grew up with a long cord, right? Landlines. What would it be like if we could hold a phone in our hand? Well, we did that. We had our early cellular phones. And then the next thing that people said was, what would it be like if I could I could put all these other things on, like music? You can get all your music on your phone. Not bad. What would it be like if we did video calling? Wow, can that be done? Yeah, sure can. And what would it be like if we put all these apps? What would it be like if the phone was basically a computer? Right? It solves problems for people. And so your book should essentially do the same thing. And for those of you who might be saying, well, fiction doesn't really solve problems for you, I beg to disagree. Of course it does. Fiction solves the ultimate problem in life, which is how to entertain ourselves. And good fiction, I would submit, doesn't just entertain, it very, very insidiously offers a worldview that might be worth a person's while to consider. Do you think, for instance, that when George Orwell wrote 1984, well, that was fiction? Is it worthwhile fiction? Yeah, I think so. I think it's very worthwhile fiction because it shows the dangers of autocracy. As a for instance, right? Again, I think the very best fiction offers worldviews and sensibilities. And so if you're writing fiction, this is something that I hope you'll consider. I attack this directly in my Break Your Story online course, by the way, by saying, to me, it's called theme. First thing you do is you pin down the theme of your book. What is it that you're trying to say? And if you can get that down, I just mentioned George Orwell, autocracy is bad, it's terrible. It's killing of the human spirit. Well, if you can get that down and you write a story about that, you have a pretty good chance, I think, of writing something for the ages. Not just a story, a good story, but something that can resonate, dear God, for a long time. And wouldn't that be nice, right? Sounds like a pretty good thing to me. All right. Got about 10 minutes left here. I want to thank you all for coming. And I hope this is worth your while. I get a kick out of it myself. If there's any other questions, anybody have something coming up, by all means, put them here in the chat comments. I answer any questions that you have. What else do I want to tell you at this point? Writing, as I know it now, after doing it for long enough, is something you get better at the more you do it. It's very frustrating. It's very hard. I personally don't want to do very much of anything else. Like with my time professionally on this planet. Of course, there's other things I'd like to do, with my time, period. I have loved ones just as you do. I have goals in life, just as I'm sure you do. But years ago, I quit my nice paying job and said, I don't want to do this anymore. I'm a writer. I've always been a writer. I mean, there's stuff that I wrote when I was 7 years old that I still have. And people tell me that when I was a kid, I was wandering around with a little notebook. Maybe this is you too. I had always done it, and I always will. And once you figure that out about yourself, you pretty much have one major choice in life, and that's, are you going to follow it or not? Have there been bad times? Oh my God, yes. I won't bore you with all that. Have there been challenging times? Oh my God, yes. Yes, there have been. Have there been great times? Yeah. Yeah, there have been. And I'm very grateful for that. It's a journey. Take it. I will not sit here and tell you or anybody that it's going to be easy. Maybe it will be. I hope it is for you. Or do I? I don't know. Sometimes I think the things that come easy probably aren't worth as much as we think they are. I'm not saying to be masochistic about it. Don't just heap suffering upon yourself. But to learn any trade well, to be a mechanic, to be a lawyer, to be a basket weaver, and certainly to be a writer, an actor, anything in the arts, a musician, a sculptor, it's a lifelong pursuit. It's your first love, basically, and you got to cling to it. You got to follow it wherever it takes you. P.S. Lorcan says, thank you, Damon. Good stuff to consider. Very happy to provide it in any way that I can. P.S. Lorcan, thank you for coming. That's how I feel about writing in general. And that's how I feel about life in general. If you love something, you love it. And that can suck sometimes, because it can hurt. But what would hurt more? Not loving it? Not having it in your life? If you've ever been in a relationship where things are challenging, you know what I'm talking about. And the whole thing about writing is the same thing. It's absolutely the same thing. There are days that I don't want to go to work, of course. There are days that you don't want to go to work. I don't care what you do. I know you. I know. I know, of course. Not everybody wakes up every day singing like it's, they're bounding across a field of daffodils like in The Sound of Music. No, writing can suck. Would I rather do anything else that sucks? No. Frankly, no. Acting is the only other thing that I personally enjoyed as much, but there are things that come with the acting trade that I find very counter to my personality. Like you have to constantly be looking for work, and I don't like that. I love doing the work of acting, but to audition, these days 10 times a week, that takes a lot of power and time and commitment. And since I'm primarily a writer first, it would take all that time away from writing, so I don't pursue it anymore. And friends come to me and they say, I've got a role for you in this. Like I did a small film a few years back, and I was like, great, fantastic. I don't have to audition? Ha! Fantastic, this is great. I love it. I love it. I went in, I got paid. Film came out, it was great. I was happy to be a part of it. I met some fantastic, talented people. And that for me was the workaround, right? It was like, well, I'm still in the union. I'm still getting paid union rates. Uh, I get to have my writing and my acting too. That was a great workaround, and it still is. So find the things that you love and let them tell you where they want you to go next. That's kind of maybe an infuriatingly vague piece of advice, but I believe that it's also true. You don't have to make all these decisions yourself. You just have to know what it is that you want to do and align yourself with it. And suddenly, a lot of things will take care of themselves. I never thought that I'd be at a position where I could actually provide for myself and my family being a writer. I mean, there's so many things that are stacked against that particular eventuality, that happenstance, that circumstance. It, looking back, it seems astonishingly improbable. And yet it can happen. And if it, believe me, if it happened for me, it can happen for you. That, I believe that's the truth. Mm. We got 4 minutes left, and I set myself up to go until 5. So I'm going to hang on for the next 4 minutes in case anybody has another question. I just wanted to thank you again all for coming. Um, the way YouTube sets this up, it will repost on the channel this session in case you ever want to watch it again. I just want to refer you again to the chat stuff. There is at the top the link to my online Break Your Story course. If for some reason that doesn't show up in the reprint of of this stream, totally cool. Just reach me through therightstuff.pro on the contact page there, and I can point you to it. It'd be nice to meet you. Until the end of the year, until January 1st, 2026, I'm giving 20% off on that online course. Just use coupon code BREAK20, BREAK 20 at checkout. What else? My friend Bridget Shade Knopfsinger, and I are teaching this great course called Writing in Perilous Times. It's an 8-week course, and it starts January 19th, and I think it goes into sometime in March. 8-week or 10-week, I always forget that. I'm getting it mixed up. But anyway, you can find a video for that right on the channel. Just type in Writing in Perilous Times. In the show notes to that, the description, you'll find the link about how to register for that. Bridget teaches at the University of Pittsburgh in the Creative Nonfiction Foundation. Um, I've taught PhDs. The kinds of things that we're going to do in that course, and Pulitzer Prize winners and National Book Award winners. I've worked with them on how to craft different stories. And so all of those techniques will be part of that course, and I really hope that you'll take advantage of that. What else? Well, it's the holidays, so I want you all to have wonderful holidays with yourselves and with your families. I wish you all happy days, happy days, and a wonderful new year. And we'll do another one of these sessions in January 2026. Like I said, I'm going to try and do one a month. So this is me signing off with all of my thanks, and hoping that you got something out of this. And it's been great to know you. Janice Stubblefield said thank you. That's wonderful. Thank you, Janice. Thank you for coming. Take care, folks.